Hey everybody, it is August 25th, Wednesday, 2021. Thank you very much for joining me. We've got a lot of news to get into today. We're going to try to cover a lot of information in a shorter amount of time. And there are some things that are looking not so good and things that are concerning me. We're going to talk about the shortages. I will talk about the monetary policy and also a little bit of a correction on some housing data. Not a correction, but more clarification on some housing data that we talked about in our last video. And it looks to me like we've got some nightmarish inflation on the way, even worse than what we've already seen. Let's go ahead and get started here. Let's start right here. This is wolfstreet.com. This has a lot of charts in this article. And this came out last week. I just found it today, though. And we're just going to show you a couple of the charts. Just go over to wolfstreet.com if you want to see the rest of them. But this shows you in visual the shortages. And what do shortages mean? They mean that prices are going to continue to rise. So let's take a look at some of the inventories in a couple of different areas here. First of all, vehicle and parts dealers. Look to the far right. That's the WTF spot there. That's the lowest we've seen in over 20 years. And that wouldn't be so bad if it was rebounding, but it's actually just continuously dropping. And of course, we saw the big surge at the beginning of the shutdown recession in 2020. That would have been the best time to buy a vehicle. Remember, at that time, there were a lot of people talking about vehicle gluts and dealers with so many cars they couldn't fit them on the lot. Cargo ships with cars that just had to sit out in the sea to try to find places to put the vehicles, right? It was really crazy. And if you would have been brave enough or able to go out and buy a vehicle at that time, that would have been the absolute best time to find the best deal. Now, just the opposite, and the lowest in over 20 years. Again, it is pretty scary. You know, how low can this go? We're still looking at 2+ years before the chip shortage gets resolved. We talked about that just a couple reports ago. Could this be the beginning of hyperinflation? This is how it starts. We have a lot of different things coming together to create this storm, right? We've got the shortages, the shutdowns, the money printing, the lending off the charts. All right, debt to the moon. I mean, this is not good if you're looking for a low cost of living, right? And this is the inventory to sales ratio, by the way. So vehicles are selling like hotcakes and just not enough of them to go around. Let's look at another one here. This is food and beverage stores. We did see the big drop there. It started to rebound and we're kind of seeing it stagnant now, but it's still much lower than typical when you look back over about 10 or 20 years. And for me, this is a tough one. This is a tough one to read. On one hand, you see so many things that are leading to higher food prices with the droughts, with the labor shortages, the supply chain issues, the shipping issues. And on one hand, I want to go ahead and max out all my credit cards and just stock up on maybe a whole garage full of food. But on the other hand, you have to worry about expiration dates and what if it does get better? Right, so how prepared or how cautious do you want to be? That's always kind of a tough one for me. And how much square footage do you want to take up in your storage area? In this case, that would be my garage. And then, of course, maxing out all your credit cards increases your chance of bankruptcy if you don't pay off the full balance. And the bankruptcy courts, they can ask you what you own or what possessions you have, what things did you buy. That way they can know what to try to repossess, right? If you have vehicles. And I can say, come and get them. There's 50,000 cans of tuna fish in the garage. Come and repossess them, right? All right, now let's talk about more on the food situation here in the shortages. Essentials are still missing from grocery stores. This is an article here out of WKBN.com. And it talks about a few different products here. Store employees say it's not because they don't order the products. It's due to the lack of workers to get items from the fields and warehouses to the shelves. So yes, the labor shortage is part of it. But even if there wasn't a labor shortage, we're having a very, very drastic time right now for farms, especially out here in the West. They're cutting water. Some farms in California now have to have these water devices, these measuring devices, to show how much groundwater the farmers are using. Farmers in some area no longer have the water rights to their own property. and they have to pump it up and measure it and report it. It's a big mess. And it looks like the the farm may be going the way of the dinosaur pretty soon if something doesn't change. The problem is, it looks like it's not going to be changing. It's going to be getting worse. More regulations, more restrictions, more severe weather. None of these issues that I see. Maybe maybe you've seen some sign of a reversal of this. But if you do know, please let me know down in the comments. But as far as I can see, things look to be just getting worse with no sign of reversal. But a lot of times it's not actually the food, it's the packaging. And it says here the metal cans for vegetables, or plastics for drinks, cardboard that you need for different drinks, glass bottles, etc. It's the containers and the metal cans, for example, that the items go in that's also seeing shortages. Again, a problem of not having enough manufacturing here in the United States. Now, some people say that this severe weather is the Earth's way of punishing a consumer, an Earth rather, full of consumers, and especially the United States, we're the #1 consumer nation. And I've read this statistic a few years ago. It may still be pretty accurate. I think it is. But the United States, we are about 5% of the world's population, but we consume, I believe, 25% of the world's resources. All right, so is this the Earth's way of punishing a consumer nation and a consumer world where it's just manufacturing, packages, trash, just trash everywhere? All right, landfills full of trash. City streets lined with trash. Look at New York. Right, tons of plastic in the ocean. Now let's go over to Twitter here. Let's see what Peter Schiff put out here earlier today. He says, quote, "The Bond King recommends my exact investment strategy. Its highest conviction trade in the US dollar going lower, eventually losing its reserve currency status." He says the best long-term investments are emerging markets, non-US entities, and gold. That's what Peter Schiff had to say about what Jeffrey Gundlach had to say. And if you look at this headline here, Gundlach says, "We're running our economy like we're not interested in maintaining global reserve currency status." Another inflationary act, right, coming out of the Fed, the money printers. So is this the end game? Are they trying to just pump as much money out there to destroy the dollar? That way they can bring in the next phase, whatever that may be. I think a lot of you might know a pretty good idea of what that is. We also see this $3 trillion stimulus package that's on its way to being cleared. And guess what? More rising prices, more inflation that you and I, the working class, the middle class, are likely going to have to pay for, right? So keep preparing, keep stacking, everybody. Stay well. Thanks for being here. Oh, quick on that chart that we talked about at the beginning. And this was the housing inventory from the last video. We talked about how it was about 2.6 months of inventory. But then we brought up this chart that showed 6 months. Well, this one is seasonally adjusted. So I just wanted to put that out there because some people were like, what are you talking about? So we're talking about the seasonally adjusted versus non-seasonally adjusted. So that was the difference. Thanks everybody for being here. Stay well. Bye now.